And breaking news out of Utah, that's where Charlie Kirk, a prominent conservative commentator, was shot and killed on a college campus tonight. One person is in custody. Good evening once again, everybody. I'm Michael Brownlee.
And I'm Colleen Williams. Kirk's name so associated with conservative politics that President Trump announced his death on social media today. Kirk was killed during an event for his nonprofit, Turning Point USA, which advocates for conservative politics on high school and college campuses. This was the first stop on his American comeback tour with the goal of debating students on different campuses.
The event was held at Utah Valley University. The school is about 40 miles south of Salt Lake City. Kirk was the only person shot at that event. NBC4's Conan Nolan joins us now. Conan, lawmakers really from across the aisle are protesting what they're hearing about this, calling it unspeakable political violence.
And it was. I have to tell you, Charlie Kirk was one of the most important figures in the conservative movement in America. There is no doubt about that. You can make a strong argument that Donald Trump would not be president without Charlie Kirk, because the effort at getting out the vote, I remember in that campaign, where was the get out the vote effort from Donald Trump? It turned out it was from this man. He went to fraternities across the country and galvanized support, particularly from young men, many of whom voted for Donald Trump and nobody else. It was one and done. Charlie Kirk was somebody who for the past 10 years has mobilized a movement on college campuses that certainly reaped rich dividends in this last election. And I have to tell you, his loss is absolutely stunning, particularly for the conservative movement, but in terms of articulating public policy. He was a bright guy. If you go to his website, very controversial, progressives hated him, and he was very much one of behind the Stop the Steal, and he questioned the vaccines during COVID, but he's a very articulate guy, and this is a huge loss.
You talk about how he wasn't a favorite of progressives, yet he appeared on Governor Gavin Newsom's podcast at the request of his 13-year-old son.
Yeah, that's right. Now, one of the reasons people in my line of work give him credit is because Charlie Kirk wanted to engage personally. Yeah. And when he would have confrontations on campus, verbal ones, with people who didn't agree with, he'd make the point. He says, we're having this discussion. That's what we need to do. We're all Americans. We have to have this debate. And he won over plenty of those students, not on his argument. They still disagreed with him, but they appreciated that he wanted to talk. And that's what Gavin Newsom did. The governor got a lot of criticism for having him on his podcast, but it was all about, listen, we have to engage. We have to talk about what James Madison referred to as the competition of ideas, and that's what Charlie Kirk was doing.
You talk about his popularity, his social media presence. If you pull that up at all today, millions. I mean, approaching well over 5 million.
Yeah, and he was a voice of a lot of young, particularly young men who did not feel connected to the political climate of the day. There are a lot of things they thought weren't right on college campuses, and he would show up and he would give voice to their concern. So yeah, it's in terms of the tenor of the debate, this was a huge loss because of, he would even impress some very liberal Democrats when he would tell you his knowledge of critical race theory and where it started years ago on college campuses. He had done his research. Very controversial. A lot of people didn't like the positions that he took. He was very pro-MAGA, but the idea that he would talk to people, and that was the most important
discussion.
Absolutely.
And we got to point out that's the political side. The personal side, he was a husband and father to a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Yeah, and I believe that there was a report that the 3-year-old was in Utah when this happened. Oh. I know that plenty of times college campuses, the administration would get petitions to keep him off. At Utah Valley, 1,000 people signed a petition saying, keep him off campus. We don't like what he has to say. The university says he has a First Amendment right.
All right, more to come. Conan, we appreciate it. Thank you. And we've just learned the suspect has been released. A lot of criticism here tonight that there was just no security in place on this college campus during Charlie Kirk's event. Kirk often debates people, as we mentioned, face-to-face, tempers flare sometimes, but everyone walks away.
And frankly, no one could have predicted something like this would happen today. Our investigative reporter Eric Leonard joins us live from the newsroom. Eric, outside of a political figure, no one gets any kind of extensive security detail. What do we know? We saw people on stage with him. Was there any kind of security out there today?
Well, there was, but it was limited because, again, this is not a national security event like you would see if the president or a high elected official were to visit, and there would be a huge security bubble and restricted entrances. I mean, this was an open event, open to anybody. There were no choke points where people were required to pass through specific entrances and exits. There was no screening of the people that arrived there. We know that Charlie Kirk traveled with a small private security team, including a driver, a few other people. They met with the university's security, or the university's police department in planning the event. The police department had about 6 officers there. But if you look at the video and the pictures we have from the scene, all of them are pretty much clustered around that main tent where he was speaking. And that's because the thing they were most concerned about was somebody in the crowd jumping over a fence, grabbing him, tempers flaring during one of these heated exchanges that are always expected at his events. The idea that they would be able to secure hundreds of yards, quarter mile in every direction, like you see when the president visits somewhere where rooftops are cleared and observers are put in place, is just not realistic. It doesn't happen. And yes, anyone could just walk up.
Why is it so difficult to provide tighter security at larger events like this? I mean, I see a couple of dividers there from that main tent, and that's it.
Right, that's really for crowd control more than anything else. The difficulty is especially outdoors. Outdoors are on a whole other level. If you talk to people working the Secret Service or other agencies that provide this kind of protection, you have to be able to control a perimeter to decide who gets in and who doesn't. You have to be able to screen people that go in. Every screening station, if you're screening for weapons, you got to have somebody there who also has a weapon, because after all, what are you going to do if you detect one? So the number of people it requires to pull off a big event, let alone an outdoor event security, is enormous. And most places, most venues simply don't have the resources to do that. So instead, they take a small team, they focus on the one person, the place that he's most likely to encounter some kind of friction with somebody, and the rest of this was open. This is something that certainly nobody was anticipating.
Law enforcement there said it was a targeted attack. There was one bullet, one person hit. This was not an active shooter.
Right. And another interesting thing about the one shot, it was very precise, as we've seen tragically with the outcome of what happened today. A couple of things we've heard from law enforcement locally. First of all, not a lot of information is being shared out of Utah, so we don't have a lot of specifics. But local people in law enforcement involved in preparing for dignitary visits and things like this, their immediate thought was whoever did this was skilled in a couple of different ways. One, not just because of the precision of the shot. Second, they left without anybody being able to report who it was or a description. And clearly, as we've learned tonight, this person being released who was being questioned, it appears they're still searching for whoever was responsible.
All right, yeah, Eric, a little more on that. We appreciate your insight and context. Again, we have just learned, as Eric mentioned, the suspect has been released. As of now, no one is in custody.
Meantime, in the aftermath of that murder, a local event tonight featuring another conservative political commentator has been pushed back. Ben Shapiro was scheduled to appear at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley. That event has now been postponed. A new date has not been announced. Our coverage of Charlie Kirk and his murder continues here at 5:30. We'll have a live report on his career and his appearances here in Los Angeles. We're also posting updates on the shooting investigation on our website, NBCLA.com, and on our NBCLA app.